Is strange. Let's see. Little problem with the camera. Just 1 second. Here we go. Oops. Hey. Wait a second. Wrong camera. One second. Okay, little glitch with the camera. Let's see, where are we? Right. Ah. That's the problem right there. All right. 1 second, we got a problem with the camera here. All right. Huh. If we can't get this camera fixed, we'll use the other camera. All right, we'll have to use the other camera, I think. This happens sometimes. That's part of life in the electronic world. All right, we'll use this camera. Means a little bit different setup. Okay, and a little bit more light. And light from here. Okay, gang. Good to see everybody. So let's chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Bharadhauti Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Bharadhauti Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Malabha Giri Bharadhauti Gopi Jana Malabha Giri Bharadhauti Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravrikacharya All Stutera Satishi Shimad His Divine Grace Savaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Jai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharini, Nivashesha Shunyavadi, Paschachate Shatarani. So, Om Ganati Madandasha Garanjana Shlakaya Chakshuran Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of our spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, of course, this is supposed to be the Sunday feast program for us in North Carolina. And for those of you who are not in North Carolina or in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, it's the Monday morning program. So, we're going to continue with our study of the Bhagavad Gita. And next week, on the Sunday program here, the Monday morning program for those of you in the South Pacific, we're going to do a little something different. I'm going to be doing the Sunday program from the Temple Room. And then we're going to have some cultural programs, plays, and drama, and different types of music. So that should be exciting. We want to keep everything very exciting, especially for the Sunday program. Maybe even some puppet shows some Sunday, just so that everybody can feel excited and not just see talking heads. I guess it gets tiring after a while. Just looking at your Zoom page and see a lot of little heads there that talk, or at least in your cases, none of you can talk because I put you on mute, but at least I can talk. So now we will go ahead and continue our study of the Bhagavad Gita. This is very exciting. We're on chapter 16 about demons and devotees, divine and demoniac natures. And right now we're talking about the divine natures. We're actually in the middle of text 1 to 3 in the purport, in Srila Prabhupada's purport, and we're going to continue from there. So without further ado, we're going to share the screen here. So now we got up to something called akrodha. Now we all know what krodha is. Krodha means anger. And everybody knows where anger comes from? Anger comes from frustration. Frustration means when you concentrate on something, you meditate on something material, whether it's subtle or gross, you develop attachment for it, you get lusty for it, and then anger comes. Now, there's spiritual anger too. Spiritual anger means that you get angry at people who are atheists, impersonalists, like that. But that has to be controlled, not uncontrolled anger. So let's talk about anger from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Akrodha means to check anger. Even if there is provocation, one should be tolerant, for once one becomes angry, his whole body becomes polluted. Anger is a product of the mode of passion and lust, and so one who is transcendently situated should check himself from anger. Apaishanam means that one should not find fault with others or correct them unnecessarily. Unnecessarily is the operative word, because it may be necessary to correct people or find fault with others. Of course, to call a thief is not fault-finding, but to call an honest person a thief is very much offensive for one who is making advancement in spiritual life. Re means that one should be very modest and must not perform some act which is abominable. Vachapalam, determination, means that one should not be agitated or frustrated in some attempt. There may be failure in some attempt, but one should not be sorry for that. He should make progress with patience and determination. Of course, that's from Rupa Goswami's verse, Utsahan nistya daryat tatat karma pravartana, enthusiasm, patience, determination, etc., like that. So, how can one do that? One has to be really focused on one's goal, first of all. And second of all, one should not be attached to the results. We should be attached to pleasing Krishna. And leave the results up to Krishna, and leave the enjoyment of the results up to Krishna, and the production of the results up to Krishna. That's up to Krishna. At least we got a chance to serve. Sometimes people ask this question that I've been doing so much service, so many years, or so much preaching, and what is the result I got for it? Well, the result is that Krishna was pleased with you. And if Krishna is pleased, you're successful. Like Prabhupada. Let's take Prabhupada's example. For so many years, Prabhupada was just like struggling. It's described struggling in the wilderness in India, trying to get people to take up Krishna consciousness. He would advertise in the newspaper, wanted brahmachari. Nobody responded. And then he would go to people's homes and he would say, you have so many children. Like 8 children. You know, people would have large families in India. You have 8 children, 9 children, 10 sons. Just give me 1 son. And they said, no. And that went on for years. You know, Prabhupada was attempting to do that before he came to America for something like 15 years. And what was the result? I think there was like 1 disciple initiated in India in like 15 years, Prabhakar. And he really wasn't even surrendered to Prabhupada. Just 1 person. That was the result. And yet Prabhupada remained determined and enthusiastic. And then when he came across the ocean, came here, for the first year there was practically nothing. And then and not only was there nothing, his room was broken into, things were stolen. He had to stay at a particular point was someone who was taking drugs. The person went crazy and probably felt that his life was being threatened, yet probably never stopped being determined. If you see a picture of Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was taking sannyas, he's standing there next to his godbrothers, and he's holding the danda. The danda is the sign of a sannyasi, the tree danda, which we mentioned before. He's holding the danda like it's a weapon of war. And there's an expression on his face, let me at him. And Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, the preaching of Krishna consciousness is like Kshatriya duty. You fight for Krishna. So here, next, we're going to talk about Tejas, which is good for Kshatriya. The word Tejas used here is meant for the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriya should always be very strong to be able to give protection to the weak. They should not pose themselves as non-violent. If violence is required, they must exhibit it. But a person who is able to curb down his enemy may, under certain conditions, show forgiveness. He may excuse minor offenses. In fact, if someone takes shelter of a Kshatriya, even if someone has actually committed some minor offenses, the Kshatriya may forgive him. Like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have the case of Parikshit Maharaj, who has actually encountered Kali, the personality of the age. And the personality of the age, Kali, was torturing a cow and cutting off the legs of a bull. And he got ready to kill Kali. And Kali said, forgive me, I surrender. And he said, all right, yes. And then Kali said, I have to live somewhere, though. And he said to Kali, okay, you can live wherever the four regulated principles are being broken, intoxication, eating, gambling, or illicit sex. And Kali said, there ain't no place like that. And Parikshit Maharaj said, okay, you can live wherever gold is being hoarded for our sense gratification. So sometimes the Kshatriya will forgive the offense if someone takes shelter of him in reality. So it's not that the Kshatriya is like uncontrolled violence against others. The word Kshatriya means to free people from harm. Trayate means liberate or free. Like we have the word mantra. Mantra is composed of two syllables, man and tra. Man is short for mana, the mind. Tra, again, like trayate, liberate. You liberate the mind. You control the mind. That's what mantra is meant for. So Kshatriya is meant to protect people from harm. So a Kshatriya, he will risk his life to protect others and to protect society. Next one is Shocham. Shocham means cleanliness, not only in the mind and body, but in one's dealings also. It is especially meant for the mercantile people who should not deal in the black market. For those who don't know what black market is, that means, anyway, for those of you from India, that means number two money. And for those of you from the West, that means money that you don't report to the IRS, or money that you hide or something like that and you don't pay taxes on, etc. That's black market. Or, bribery and stuff like that. Natimani ta, not expecting honor, applies to the shooters of the worker class, which are considered, according to the Vedic injunctions, to be the lowest of the four classes. They should not be puffed up with unnecessary prestige or honor and should remain in their own status. It is the duty of the Shudras to offer respect to the higher classes for the upkeep of the social order. Now, I'm just really going to explain something really important for all of you. One thing that I've experienced is if someone has not raised their consciousness to a higher level than the Shudra level, that means Shudra basically is like mode of ignorance, but the Shudra means lamentation, hankering, pride, as Prabhupada mentions here. It's very interesting how Prabhupada connects pride with Shudras. Because Shudras are very, by nature, Kshatriyas also have some pride too, I understand. But Shudras are just very proud. They want to show off either their body, or they want to show off their learning, or they want to show off their, let's say, expertise, their artistry. They have to sign the name on the painting like that, or on a photograph or something like that. That's the Shudra quality, bragging, a braggart. So let me tell you something very, very interesting so you can understand how or why some people fall down from devotional service. Okay, so in Krishna consciousness and in the Vedas, we have a lot of very, very deep, important, perfect knowledge, right? Okay. So if you give that knowledge, that's why it says in the Vedas that the Vedas should not be taught to Shudras. You may wonder why that is. Because if a Shudra has that knowledge, the Shudra will misuse it and think themselves very advanced and more intelligent even than the Guru. Wow. How does that happen? How does that happen? We've seen it many times. I'll give an example in Prabhupada's pastimes. Prabhupada had one disciple. Oh, I had many disciples, but one disciple as far as this story is concerned. And I'll even tell you his name because this is part of history. His name was Nitai. I'm not saying that everybody with the name Nitai is bad. Nitai is a beautiful name. It's a name of Lord Nityananda. So his name was Nitai. Okay. And Prabhupada assigned him the study of Sanskrit. So Nitai became very expert in Sanskrit. And he became so proud of his learning that he began to criticize Prabhupada. Not only did he begin to criticize Prabhupada, but he began to criticize Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then he became influenced by some people that were members of what we call the anti-party. The anti-party is a party of so-called scholars who oppose Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they're more into Siddha Pranali. Anyway, I've described what Siddha Pranali is. Siddha Pranali means when you take initiation, you get your spiritual name in the spiritual world, not only the name in the material world, but your name in the spiritual world. Like, let's say, you get your beads. You are so-and-so gopi. That's pretty cool. But really, that's not applicable, that process of Siddha Pranali nowadays. Okay, might have been applicable in Lord Chaitanya's time, etc., like that. So anyway, so this particular devotee, Nitai, became very proud of his learning because he was very expert in Sanskrit. And then, as I said, he thought he knew more than Prabhupada and some of our predecessor acharyas, and he began to criticize Prabhupada. And as a result, he fell down, and Prabhupada made a heavy statement about him. He said, he has become a snake. So here was someone really materially brilliant. Okay, this is the reason I'm telling the story, not to criticize Nitai. Nitai is still writing things critical of Prabhupada. Still doing that. Still doing that. And that's, what is the motivation? False pride. Because behind every philosophical stance, there is an emotional reason. Yes, it's a fact. Every time someone makes a philosophical statement on their own, maybe not from Shastra, then there's some emotional reason. I'll give you a practical example in our movement. And I know some of you may not like this. Like, you'll find certain people who want to keep women from initiating in our movement, being gurus. So you can argue with them until you're blue in your face, or red in your face, or purple in your face, or chartreuse, or polka dot in your face. But the point is, you won't win an argument because there's an emotional attachment, psychological, mental basis behind it. And that's really the problem with the Shudra mentality. Because the Shudra mentality is such that their biases, whether it's anger, and these are very subtle things that are in the consciousness. We all have this, subconsciousness, or or subconscious mind, let's say. We all have the subconscious mind that influences a lot of things that we may not be aware of, our biases or emotions like that. So the Shudra is one who is controlled by emotions. However, and also Prabhupada said a Shudra is one who laments. Prabhupada defined it like that one time, too. So he or she is controlled by emotions. And so when they get a lot of knowledge, they can be super, super academically qualified. Oh my God, who would call me this time? Anyway, just on a very important point, let me just shut them down. That's good. Okay, sorry for that brief interruption. Just give me 1 second. I'll get back to the Bhagavad Gita. What's that? Okay, here we go. So, okay, getting back to the point. So, someone can be an absolute Shudra, that means controlled by the mode of ignorance, lamenting and everything like that, and at the same time be a highly intellectual scholar with a PhD. The two are not mutually exclusive. You know, sometimes we think, oh, someone who's brilliant, he must be a Brahmin. You'll see some of the atheists are extremely intelligent, but I wouldn't call them Brahmins. And sometimes you'll see Shudras who are given a lot of this knowledge in Krishna consciousness, and the knowledge we're talking about Krishna conscious knowledge now. The knowledge is actually perfect, pure, all that other stuff like that, but it gives them the feeling that they're better than others, even better than Prabhupada. And they think they can criticize Prabhupada or their other guru, whoever their guru is. And as a result, pride goes before the fall. And I've seen it happen like that. People who just fancy themselves as being very intelligent. And they are very intelligent in that respect. But they're Shudras. So that's why the Vedas say we have to be careful about teaching Shudras the Vedic knowledge. Now, what does that mean in Krishna consciousness? Everyone should be taught they're not the body, everyone, but as far as like really, let's say, elevated philosophy, this can be misused by people, twisted and misused. So we should understand who is a Shudra, who is a Brahmin, who is a Vaishya, who is a Kshatriya, by their nature, not by how much they know. There was that Brahmin who Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to, who could not even read, what to speak of understanding the Vedic literatures. But that Brahmin, he was following the order of his spiritual master, humbly attempting to read the Bhagavad Gita in spite of not being able to read the Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Chaitanya said, you were the real knower of the Bhagavad Gita. He didn't know one verse from another. He probably wasn't able to quote any Sanskrit verses. So we shouldn't think that that's what a Brahmin is. I mean, for example, let's take my godbrother Jayananda. Jayananda, I mean, he was a Vaishnava Brahmin, even though he'd like to do other things like fixing cars and other, he did whatever Krishna wanted. Actually, he did whatever Krishna wanted. He loved to cook, which is a Brahminical activity, but he was ready to do whatever Krishna wanted. Yet when Prabhupada tried to teach him how to pronounce the Gayatri Mantra, he couldn't do it. And Prabhupada just said, well, think of me when you're chanting the Gayatri Mantra. Think of Prabhupada, not me, of course. And so he was a Brahmin. So we have to be very careful to understand this distinction. A Brahmin, samadhamatapaksha, he's equipoised. He doesn't lament. He's clean. tolerant, religious. That's Brahmin. And he may be illiterate. May or may not. That's not one of the qualities. It doesn't say that Brahmin has to be literate. I mean, he cultivates knowledge, but he doesn't have to be literate like that. And then that's a Brahmin. And then a Kshatriya, he likes to protect others. He's passionate, likes to protect others. He may like to show off his guns, bow and arrows. And he may be very intelligent and educated too. And a Vaishya may be very, very educated and intelligent. That's okay. But the Brahmins, Vaishyas, and Kshatriyas, they're all twice born. They're given that knowledge, the Vedic knowledge. The three classes. Shudras are not. Because it's very, very dangerous. A Shudra means one who is lamenting, one who is hankering, one who is overcome by ignorance or anger. Once, as Prabhupada said in the last line here, one who wants respect. Respect is so important to a Shudra. Just like you say, the people who are musicians, not all musicians, musicians and actors, they're really into respect and adoration, proper adoration, distinction. I remember I was with one particular actor in Bollywood one time. I was not an actor. And this actor, he was surrounded by paparazzi, you know, this was in, where was it? Oh, it was in Govardhan. No, it wasn't in Govardhan, it was in Braj, Vrindavan. In Govardhan there was another actor, but that's a different story. So, and he was surrounded by paparazzi and taking pictures, and he had a little mustache. And he kept twirling his mustache and showing off his mustache for everybody, which he had just grown for a film. That's Shudra quality. That doesn't mean he's bad. That's Shudra quality, because he wants prestige and honor. And like a musician stands before, we were talking about this before, how a musician stands before all of his audience and they're roaring, oh, John, George, Ringo, or whatever musician's name. Just like, I'll give you an example. Once upon a time in New Orleans, which happens to be I'm in charge of that temple also, we brought a very famous singer from India to do a fundraising program. I'm not going to mention who it was. He came and he was chanting Krishna's name, and everybody in the audience, you know, the big high rollers, people with money, they were saying, oh, it's so nice. Wow, I feel so Krishna conscious or whatever. And then after that, after the ceremony or performance, then they all retired. Him and his band retired to the hotel when they purchased meat and liquor and whatever. And because we were sponsoring them, you know, we had to pay the bill for it. So what does that mean? That means it's Shudra. So Shudra is very important. They become proud of Janmaishvarya, Shrutasya Shibir, of their so-called good birth. Just like you see sometimes someone may be in a royal family. Ooh, royal family. I'm not saying what country. Many countries have royal families. America, we don't have a royal family, thank God. We got enough trouble without a royal family. But in certain countries, you have a royal family. And they may be a Shudra. And they're just proud of it. Yeah. A pauper is proud of his penny. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. So there's one may be proud of his birth in a royal family, may be proud of his learning, may be proud of his or her beauty, or any of the opulences, or renunciation. Just like we talk about Krishna's 6 opulences, so Shudra may be proud of any of them. Whereas the sign of an actually advanced devotee is manina manadena. He offers respects to others. He's not proud. Doesn't walk around pridefully. So, and of course, Prabhupada was never proud. He attributed whatever he was doing to the mercy of his spiritual master. So I think it's really important to cover this point about Shudras, because I definitely experienced this with dealing with people, that if someone doesn't have the necessary Brahminical qualities or even Kshatriya or Vaishya qualities, and they're given Krishna conscious knowledge, it can actually be counterproductive for their spiritual life. Sounds interesting. And Vishwanath Chakrabarti talks about how the byproducts of bhakti can be the cause, or one of the causes, of anarthas, unwanted things. And that's one of the byproducts of bhakti. One of the byproducts of bhakti is you know more, but you don't want to become a know-it-all. And that's what happens with a Shudra. A know-it-all, and then you begin to think you're better than your spiritual authorities. I saw that happen so many times. I had a friend from, he's not a disciple, a friend from Finland. He thought he knew more than Prabhupada, so he went to Radhakund and then took shelter of a Babaji. Then he thought he knew more than that Babaji and took shelter of another Babaji. Then he thought he knew more than the other Babaji. That's not to say anything about the Babajis. And then he thought he knew more than the Vedic literatures. And then he became a Buddhist. And then he thought he knew more than the Buddhists. And he was super intelligent. He was able to translate books from Sanskrit. He thought he knew more than the Buddhists. He studied Pali, which is actually the Buddhist language, similar to Sanskrit. And then he became just like a regular meat eater. And he just fell down into normal human society, became a malecha. So this pride is very dangerous. It is a Shudra quality, this pride. So you have to be very careful, even with Krishna conscious knowledge. I was talking about this subject matter with one of the devotees today on the internet, because we were mentioning about someone who was very proud, and they committed so many offenses, and they lost their Krishna consciousness. So if we want to keep our Krishna consciousness, then that is avoid offenses, which the first offense on chanting is actually the most dangerous, called the mad elephant offense, because you lose a taste, your ability to understand. And essentially, the most essential thing is to give up pride. And if we do have knowledge, attribute it to the mercy of Krishna and my spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada. So, like we say before class, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blind in the darkness of ignorance. So just remember where we came from. Without the mercy of Krishna, our spiritual master, and then it's so dangerous to actually have too much knowledge. It is so dangerous. Anyway, I'm commenting on this because we had a case today that really was traumatic for me to deal with. It wasn't me, it was another person. Anyway, one of my ex-disciples. And it's just very traumatic having to deal with someone just like become a malecha. Anyway, and you feel for these people, but the people have made their own bed. As the saying goes, make your own bed and lie in it. Okay. So on that happy note, I don't know if that's a happy note, but on that note, this is a warning for all of us, that just because someone's intelligent doesn't mean they're a Brahmin. And just because someone cannot speak properly does not mean they're a Shudra. They may be a Brahmin. So all these 26 qualifications mentioned are transcendental qualities. They should be cultivated according to the different statuses of social and occupational order. In other words, time, place, and circumstance. The purport is that even though material conditions are miserable, if these qualities are developed by practice by all classes of men, then gradually it is possible to rise to the highest platform of transcendental realization. So, in coordination with our Krishna consciousness, we should see if we're developing these qualities, 26 qualities that are mentioned here. And I would say these qualities will manifest when we learn, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Trinadapi Sunuichena Tarari Vasihishtrana Amanina Mandadena Kirtaniya Siddhahari. What does that mean? One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and one should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, you can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So what that means, is always consider yourself to be Gopi Bharta Padakamala, Dasa Dasa, Dasanudasa, a servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of the Lord. Don't try jumping like Hanuman, like that. So if one remembers this, one's position, then all the other good qualities can manifest from that. All the other good qualities. And if you don't remember that, all the other bad qualities come about. All right, on that note, we will go to the next text. So we spent a lot of time on the first two texts of this chapter, but it was important. Now we're going to get to the more interesting qualities, the qualities of demons, as Prabhupada would say. I like demons because they're interesting. Spice. So, Dambo Darpo Vimanascha Kroda Paryushameva Cha Yanam Cha Vitatasya Partasam Padamasurim. Now look at the first word that's used here. Remember how we just mentioned about a minute ago? Amanina Manadena, offering all respects to others and not desiring respect for oneself. And false pride we talked about. Pride goes before the fall. So look at this, what's happening here. You take the opposite. You actually take the opposite of what the last verse was about. Last three verses were about. And you get to this verse. Damba, pride. Darpa, arrogance. Abhimanaha, conceit. That's about the same thing as arrogance. Cha, and. Krodha, anger. Parusham, harshness. Actually, the word harshness sounds like harsh. It's interesting, many words in English and in Sanskrit sound like what they mean. It's called onomatopoetic. Fancy word. Eva, certainly. Cha, and. Jnanam, ignorance. Cha, and. Abhijatasya, of one who is born of, Partho, son of Pritha. Sampadam, the qualities asurim, the demoniac nature. Now look at this. Practically what I was talking about before. Pride, arrogance, conceit. Basically, those three words are very similar. And when you find something emphasized 3 times, that should be taken very seriously. That's the Vedic interpretation rule. Pride, I'm proud, I'm arrogant. That's about the same thing. Arrogance means practically you act pridefully. Like if you just have pride, then you may not act like that, you may just think about it. Arrogance means you begin to act like it. Conceit means, phew, you're conceited. Everybody's looking at you like, you're conceited. Can't think of a better word. And then from that, anger, harshness, and ignorance. So these are very similar concepts. These qualities belong to the demoniac nature, O son of Pritha. So if you see someone very prideful, oh my God, I hate to refer to this in class, but if someone says, I am the best, whatever, all right, I'm the best president that ever was, the most intelligent president ever was, then you understand these are demoniac qualities. Simple like that. Or if someone says that I'm just a servant of the Lord, that's a godly quality. In this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. Does that not describe these people exactly? They make a show. I mean, I hate to get political with this, but they make a show. I mean, one person I'm thinking of just went to a church and held a Bible basically upside down to make a show of religion, but had all the bad qualities and lack of compassion, lack of empathy, extremely proud and conceited, but they make a show of religion. Don't we see this? They are always arrogant or proud and possessing some type of education or so much wealth. And sometimes, possess education, they actually have someone else take a test for them. And as far as so much wealth, it's all in paper. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. There's a difference between demanding respect and commanding. Prabhupada commanded respect. When you saw Prabhupada, it was immediately you respected him. Even though he was short of stature from a physical point of view, immediately you respected him. It was like, in the Vedic literatures or in the Vedic astrology, there's a particular type of conjunction of planets and stars called Mridanga Yoga. Some of you may have studied astrology and may know what I'm talking about. That means the Mridanga Yoga is such that when this person enters the room, it's like a Mridanga has played. And Prabhupada had that yoga. Over trifles, now we're talking about demons. Over trifles, they become very angry and speak harshly, not gently. They do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. These demoniac qualities are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers, and as they grow, they manifest these inauspicious qualities. Ooh. I think we should give this to some of the politicians to deal with their opponents. Anyway, it's such a perfect description. Oh my God. And it's interesting, at least. So, text 5. Daivi sampad vimokshaya nibandasya yasuri mata mashucha sampadam daivim abhijatosi pandava. Daivi, transcendental sampad, assets. Vimokshaya, meant for liberation. Nibandhaya, for bondage. Asuri, demoniac qualities. Mata are considered. Ma, do not. Shuchao, worry. Sampadam, assets. Daivim, transcendental. Abhijataha, born of, Asi, you are. Pandava, son of Pandu. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. So, of course, Pandu, not Pandu, of course, Pandu too, but son of Pandu means Arjuna. Of course, Arjuna was born from very good parents. Kunti, of course, Pandu was officially his father, but his real father was Indra. So he has so many divine qualities. He was born with them. So that brings up the discussion of nature versus nurture. And if someone is born, the question that may be raised, if someone is born with demoniac qualities, because their parents did not do the Garbhadha and Sanskara, did not have right consciousness, were thinking demoniacally, lustfully, what do? Well, actually, nurture is more important than nature. Even if you were born with demoniac qualities, the most important thing is what happens after you're born or what you do in life. You can change things. Just like Prahlad Maharaj. He had demoniac genes, but by good association with Narada Muni, he changed and became a great personality. And you find so many instances where people born with demoniac qualities actually were transformed by association. That's the power of association. And even you'll find people born with godly qualities or divine qualities who are degraded by bad association. Krishna's own son, Boma, became degraded by bad association, and Krishna had to eventually kill the guy because he had done so many horrible things by bad association. So everything is based on that association. As oftentimes we talked about the modes of nature, karnam guna sangasha sadasad janma jonishu. That one becomes like who or what they associate with. Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna by telling him that he was not born with demoniac qualities. His involvement in the fight was not demoniac because he was considering the pros and cons. He was considering whether respectable persons such as Bhishma and Drona should be killed or not. So he was not acting under the influence of anger, false prestige, or harshness. Therefore, he was not of the quality of the demons. So in other words, A bona fide Kshatriya would think twice, 10 times before doing anything that was questionable. And he would always follow the dharma, the right thing, do the right thing. For a Kshatriya, a military man shooting arrows at the enemy is considered transcendental, and refraining from such a duty is demoniac. In other words, if in the course of his activities he's protecting people, he doesn't just shoot arrows and think that someone is his enemy, but someone is threatening people. For example, if we had a situation here where someone was threatening the devotees and I had the ability, a gun or arrows or whatever to protect, I would shoot them to protect the devotees. That's a higher principle. And that's real nonviolence, to protect others. And Kshatriya should do that. So if you don't do that, that's demoniac. Let's see, if you, if you see someone being harmed, attacked, and you don't do anything and you have the ability to do something, that's demoniac. That's lazy. That's Shudra or less. Horrible. I remember reading one report in New York City many years ago. There was one lady who was getting attacked and people were watching from their balconies like it was some TV show. That's demoniac. So in the same way, if we have ability to help someone become Krishna conscious, and we have the energy and ability, and we don't do it, that doesn't speak very well for us. Therefore, there was no cause for Arjuna to lament. Anyone who performs the regulated principles of the different orders of life is transcendently situated. If they perform the regulated principles of the different orders, Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, dharmically. You can't say I'm a Brahmin and I'm doing things adharmic or against Krishna consciousness. You're not a Brahmin. You're Shudra, as we mentioned before. Anyway, we touched upon many, many interesting points in class, especially the danger of a Shudra having too much knowledge. Too much knowledge for someone who's not ready is not good. I mean, I'll give you one practical example of that and then we'll take questions. There's Ashwatam. Ashwatam was born in a Brahmin family. Father was Dronacharya. And because his father was very, very, sentimental. And he said, oh, my son, my dear son. He taught his son how to use a Brahmastra. What's a Brahmastra? Brahmastra means atomic weapon. That's what a Brahmastra is. And he taught his son, even though his son was completely unqualified, his son was a Shudra by quality, he taught his son that. And it became a cause of great distress after the Mahabharata war, when his son actually killed the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas, tried to kill the Pandavas with the Brahmastra weapon. So one should not be sentimental. That's a perfect example of why you don't give someone who is not qualified in terms of the modes of nature, you don't give them that much information because they'll misuse it. It's just like if you give someone, let's say someone becomes, oh my God, example again, become president of the United States and he has his finger on the button to set the atomic weapons, in action. Wow, what a stupidity. What a stupidity. You don't do that. Someone has to be qualified to be given knowledge. Knowledge is a weapon. And if it's not given to the right person, it can actually be very destructive. So I think it's an extremely important point that I was making about knowledge and Shudras and being qualified Brahminically. So it's very important that we've all been given this knowledge by Srila Prabhupada, but we should acquire Brahminical qualities and not be proud of this knowledge. So anyway, we'll take some questions, and then Aditya Narayan Prabhu will have some announcements after that. Let me unmute everybody so you can ask questions. Sorry for me preaching so much about Shudras, but it was just something that happened today that struck me. So, who has questions?
Hare Krishna Guru.
Haribol, sounds like Rishikesh.
Hare Krishna Guru.
What happened to your neck?
It's a mask.
Oh, it's a mask. Oh, I thought you had had an accident. So, phew. Okay.
Guru, I had a question about in Srimad Bhagavatam, you see all this Vashishta Muni, Vishwamitra, and all these great sages, who are completely very elevated sages, but they're very short-tempered.
Yeah.
Even we see even sannyasis and other things, they're very short-tempered. I mean, how do you explain that? It's that kind of quality.
Basically, we don't want to start criticizing them. These are, with as far as Vashishta and Vishwamitra, this is sort of like a interesting pastime. So we have to be careful and follow etiquette. Etiquette means that if someone is a senior person, someone is singing in the background.
So I'm in the
Where are you?
I'm in the temple right now.
Oh, that's why they're singing. Okay. So, okay. So, all right. So, we have to be careful and follow etiquette. At the same time, if someone is exhibiting, I mean, if someone is getting angry, just tolerate. If they're in a superior position, that's the etiquette. However, if someone does something really bad, like if you see me go to the liquor store and get drunk, that's another subject matter. Of course, I may be going to preach to people there, so just be careful. So one has to be very cautious when dealing with senior persons. But at the same time, don't be blind. Yes, anger. But sometimes there's causes of anger. So like Prabhupada would get angry with people, when they acted like a rascal. And sometimes, I get angry with people when, anyway, when they need it. Sometimes people need a little bit of heaviness. Prabhupada would chastise. One time, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and he was chastising Surabhyabhi Palyantam Swami just for the construction. And Prabhupada said to him, everybody is praising you for your good work, but my business is spiritual masters that chastise you. So sometimes people need a little bit of chastisement. That's what I've seen. One of the problems I have is I'm too much often like peace and love, and then disciples think they can get away with anything, They just say, "Oh, Guru Maharaj." That's one of the problems I have. I should be chastising more, but it's just like he's so soft. He's easy to deal with. Easy to pull the wool over his eyes. No, not really, but so I think I need to chastise more, become angry more. Becoming angry for Krishna is a good idea. People say, you tolerate so many things. Unbelievable what you tolerate. Just like I walked into a particular ashram the other day, and the devotee had painted their wall like it looked like something from the 1960s. It looked like I thought I was back at Woodstock. And I just smiled. So sometimes a little chastisement is necessary. I think I'm too soft. So does that answer your question?
Yes, Gurudev. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. About Chaitanya. You have a question?
Sorry, I think Mataji was asking a question as well.
Okay, Prabhu, you go first, and then I'll ask later after you.
Would you like me to go first, or the
Yeah,
Mataji?
yes, please.
Oh, you decide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Veda Mataji. Just a very quick question then, Maharaj. You stressed the whole issue of pride quite a bit. So and how pride can be so dangerous. What's any tips on how to contain pride? Particularly as we're trying to advance in our devotional service, what are the ways to curb it?
What are the ways to contain pride? Well, to actually serve others. I mean, just to do practically. Practically, if you do some menial service for others. See, one of the symptoms of pride is that we're unwilling to do menial service for other people. Menial service means like cleaning the pots in the temple or doing something like that. Instead, we want to do some really, we want to be the one who gives the class. We want to be the one that calls the shots, the boss. So instead, like we should take a humble position. And actually, I see that happens in our temple a lot. We have a lot of our congregation who are coming from either wealthy families or very intelligent families, and they come on Sunday and they clean the pots and they clean the temple. It's very nice to see that. Very, very nice to see that humble service attitude. I mean, our congregation here is just so blissful because they take that mood. So that's the whole point. Just be ready to do anything. Like my godbrother Jayananda, he was always ready to fix a car or just take a humble position. He never wanted to take the position of being a leader. I think that's the solution. Namanina, manadena. Lord Chaitanya gives the solution. Okay, Jaradika, you had a question.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances to you.
Jai.
Right. My question is, could you please talk a little about retaliation, but tolerance versus retaliation?
Retaliation, getting even with someone. I want to see you suffer.
Yeah.
So that's a Shudra quality, actually. It's not even a Kshatriya quality. To get even, to want to see someone suffer, it's called retribution is actually the technical name for that, retributive action. So to take joy in seeing other people suffering, that's retaliation. Whereas a Vaishnava, he's forgiving, he or she is forgiving and praying for the benefit, like Haridas Thakur was, and there's many other examples of Vaishnavas, Lord Nityananda, of course, praying for those who attacked him. Now, on the other hand, if someone attacks Krishna or another devotee, then we get angry. If someone attacks me, then I just go, Hare Krishna, hopefully. But if someone attacks you, then I get very angry. And, this makes me extremely angry. Anyway, anger is all right in those cases. But retaliation is not actually part of a Vaishnava psychology mentality. It's just not there. Getting even. I'll teach you a lesson. Look what you did to me. I'm going to make you suffer. I'm going to curse you. I'll break my Brahman thread. You will go to hell. That's not. So we shouldn't think like that. If someone does something bad to us, then we, so-called bad, then we just pray for them. My dear Lord Krishna, please help them understand the right path to act. I mean, I saw that today dealing with this particular case who, I said, Shudra, but too much knowledge. I just praying, Krishna, please bring them back on the right path. They have to give up their false pride. But actually, if someone doesn't voluntarily give up their false pride, then they're in for a lot of smashing by Krishna. I mean, it's real. I don't feel happy to see someone like smashed. It's not that Krishna is retaliating. Krishna just has to show them, you don't know anything. As they say, you know nothing. So we should pray to people. Not retaliation. We shouldn't try to get even. It's not good. It's retaliation. What good does it do? It just makes you both suffer. Getting even with someone.
So basically, instead of talking back to a person in a nice way, replying to a person, like probably saving you in some instance, you rather leave it to Krishna and
well, if you can help them, you talk back to them if you think you can help them. But if it's just going to evoke a negative response from them, there's no sense in doing it.
Yeah.
What is that statement in Bengali, I believe? Upadesho hi murkanam prakopayana shantaye. If you give a fool good instruction, it just makes them angry.
Mm.
It's like feeding milk to a serpent. Just increases the venom. So you have to be able to ascertain, have the discrimination to know how much you can give to someone.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll turn this over to Aditya Narayan Prabhu, who is there, and he makes an announcement for us. Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for a very important instruction. Our class was based on that instruction and really emphasized the importance of that. So thank you so much for the
Thank you.
wonderful. So first announcement I have is on this Thursday, Purushottam Mass starts. And Maharaj, do you want to say anything that as devotees, like we should follow during the month of Purushottam?
Oh, this Thursday is also the appearance day of His Divine Grace Bhakti Churu Maharaj, right?
Yes, Maharaj. I will announce that maybe after this. I just
Okay, so Purushottam Mass is sometimes considered the second Damodar month, and it's a special month for chanting Hare Krishna, being Krishna conscious, and reading and hearing more. The interesting thing is, maybe you can answer this question, Aditya, is that I noticed that nobody has their appearance day or disappearance day the whole month. Does that mean that nobody appears or disappears during Purushottam Mass, or they just move it to a different month?
Maharaj, I think we discussed this that day, and then after that, I was thinking about this point, and I think you mentioned that it's like just like if someone is born on a leap day, 29th of February,
Yeah.
they probably may celebrate it on 1st of March. So I'm just speculating that maybe even if someone is born appear during Kartik, I mean during Purushottam, they probably.
Move it.
I'm just guessing, Maharaj.
Yeah, there must be a rule how to move it, because with leap year it's just one day off, but with Purushottam Mass it's a whole month off. So anyway, maybe someone can figure that out for us. All right.
Thank you, Maharaj. So also, as Maharaj announced, so Thursday is also the appearance of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. So we'll be having a celebration. We'll be having two sessions, and both will be on Zoom. Both are online. So the first session would be starting at noon, because traditionally Vyas Puja celebration is at noon. So from noon to almost 12:45 would be the first session, where we'll have Pushpanjali, we'll have Artik, and then yeah. So those two things will be the main thing. Like we'll have Pushpanjali and we'll have Artik and Guru Puja. So that's from 12 to 12:45, and then the evening is a time from 6 to 8, where we'll have devotees making their offerings on Zoom. So we will start at 6 p.m. and Maharaj actually said that he will be offering. So after Maharaj, anyone would like to invite any devotees, disciples, any senior devotees who would like to make their offering. You can join in, and we have time. We have 2 hours, so to invite devotees to make their offerings to His Holiness Bhakti Charu. Yes, Maharaj. So those are two sessions we'll have. One is at noon, and one will be verbal offering.
All right.
So
Is that
I
it?
think yes, Maharaj. Those are.
Okay. And then, of course, just want to remind everybody the temple here is dependent on. You want to
Yes,
remind
Maharaj.
everybody the temple is dependent on donations and things like that.
So now, like it's, I think from March is like March we had our Gaur Purnima, but after that we have not had a regular Sunday feast. So it's almost 6 months. And normally when we have a Sunday feast program and festival celebrations with so many people coming, then people come, they contribute to the temple. So now is the time when because entire Corona situation, so like we're not having our regular Sunday feast program. So it's an opportunity for us. Like one way I see is like a greater opportunity to come and give something to the deities, offer something to the deities. So if anyone would like to make a donation towards the regular deity worship standard that's been going on since Maharaj started the temple in '85, and with all the offerings. So even though this COVID has affected, we have not reduced our daily worship standard. All the same offerings are going on, high standard offerings,
Mm.
Aarti, and also temple maintenance itself requires financial. So if anyone would like to contribute towards that, Maharaj, I think just posted the PayPal account ID. So so you can, that's a PayPal ID, so you can actually make a donation in that. And again, all our donations are tax exempt. So if you like to have a tax exempt receipt, also send it.
Okay. All right, thank you. And also, I'd just like to remind everybody the next Sunday, starting next Sunday, we're going to be having a little bit different program. Of course, it'll be online, but I think I'll be doing it online from the temple room. And we're going to have some music performances, not by me, don't worry. And maybe some drama or plays, interesting drama, instructive plays next Sunday. So it's going to be a more variegated program on Sunday or Monday for those of you in New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji. So we want to just increase some of the visuals in a Krishna conscious way, so to make our programs very interesting, and let's increase the quality of the music too, if that's all right. Okay, so I guess that's it. We'll see everybody next week, or tomorrow, sorry. Tomorrow at the same time, same station for the Bhagavad Gita study, continuing with the divine and demoniac natures. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki